Every so often, a headphone is released that is clearly inspired by another. The brand new Yamaha YH500 SE took notes from the Sennheiser HD800, which borrowed Sony's homework from the MDR SA5000 or the Qualia 010. Today we will look at the audio-technica ATH-909, which also bears some uncanny similarities to another market-leading headphone that arrived on the scene 6 years prior. It was released in 1987, a time when most of the legendary consumer headphones in Japan were either closed back or on-ear portables or earbuds due to the rise of the Walkman. Unlike those trends of the era, Audio-Technica very likely looked west for inspiration. In the very early 80s, Biodynamic was doing something different and very important, which led to the release of the first DT880 in 1981. Out of all their marketing, one thing should have stood out to the readers the most. Bietet doch Wiedergabeeigenschaften, die Fachleute nur mit den Klangergebnissen weit teure Elektrostaaten vergleichen. No other company was making such claims in 1981, and according to my ears, they were right. It wasn't until the mid to late 80s that other companies were producing equally advanced dynamic systems capable of such high detail retrieval. For this comparison, I will be using the DT880M. The build of the two headphones are very similar, both with a suspension headband, both have semi-open back cups, and an ear pad diameter of 100mm. If we remove the ear pad, we can see that the underside of the pads are completely fenestrated, which is another similarity with almost all of Biodynamic studio headphones in the past 40 years, including the DT880. Audio-Technica were clearly paying further attention to the Studio DT lineup, as the driver baffle also shares similar damping materials and design with the later DT990, which released in 1985. These include a ring of felt and a fenestrated metal plate tuning lens over the driver, which all contribute to the tuning, tone and presentation of the headphone. Looking further inside, we see a ring of foam around an asymmetrical driver, which at first appears to be of a fairly average quality, but as we know, a headphone is the sum of its parts, and in this case the sums all add up, and we are presented with an unsurprisingly open, smooth and spacious presentation, not totally unlike the original Biodynamics. It follows a mostly flat mid-range curve, but warmer and closer in overall tone with the modern Sennheiser HD650. The ATH-909 appears to be tuned more accurately than the original DT990 and is generally a more enjoyable listen. Sometimes the mini DSP ears create some anomalies, but on this graph for the DT990, this dip around 6 kHz is real and has a negative impact on all music. The only thing that holds the ATH-909 back from being a legendary headphone in its own right is the resolving power of the drivers. There is an obvious veil over the upper treble and a lack of overall contrast that can leave you wanting more visceral impact that isn't there. Conversely, you could take this to be the perfect complement to something like the DT880M, which is tonally accurate and unsympathetically reveals all the flaws in a recording. After a long busy day, when you're not in the mood for aggressive and hyper-realistic details, I can see these taking the edge off for a calm, relaxing evening with a smooth and forgiving headphone. If I compare the DT880M and ATH-909 directly, the latter almost entirely removes background hissing on some tracks, reduces the soundstage to a more intimate space, and warms things up without imparting too much of its own character upon the performance. If peak performance is not your goal, and maybe you're someone who likes to take the scenic route, these might be a vintage to look out for. I'll see you in the next one.